was the summer of 2014, and for my son's bar mitzvah present, just like many Jewish parents, we wanted him to bond with the Holy Land. Oh, it worked perhaps too well. My husband had stayed back at the hotel, and our friends, my son and I, had just stopped in a pharmacy.
Run to the bomb shelter, sweetie. Please hurry. I didn't hear the sirens at first, but the Israelis did. They're used to hearing these things. We ran to the back of the storeroom. It was a 12-foot by 24-foot windowless bomb shelter. My heart's pounding. Boom! Boom! I hear and feel the percussion of the exploding bombs. I'm trying not to get sick. I look at my 13-year-old son and I think I'll never forgive myself if something happens to him.
That's an excerpt from a speech I gave to the Orange County Jewish Bar Association. It was the first, but not the last time we had to run to a bomb shelter. Our adventure and my transformation is also the subject of my book, Blasted from Complacency, A Journey from Terror to Transformation in Israel. There is no chapter in a parenting book on what to do when a war starts and you're on a family vacation. Think touring extraordinary and sacred sites mixed with cowering in bomb shelters. I'm still trying to get over the Jewish guilt of taking my son to war for his bar mitzvah present. The impact of being human targets helped me understand the plight of Israelis living like this, and it also made me want to work on peace. How Israel is often described on the news is not what I'd seen with my own eyes. And I felt Palestinian parents also preferred their children playing safely in their backyards. The missiles exploded just near enough to blow apart my world as I knew it, forever changing me. And you'd never recognize my life today with what it was like then. I believe I found my life's purpose. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you join us. My name is Penny St., and I'm the host of Peace with Penny. We're excited to have Dr. Tareq Abu Hamed, the new executive director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, or AIES, with us today. He's the first appointment of a Palestinian to head an academic institute in Israel. Dr. Abu Hamed has a very impressive resume. He holds a bachelor's and a master's of science in chemical engineering from Gaza University in Turkey and a PhD in chemical engineering from Ankara University, also in Turkey, and has completed 2 terms of postdoctoral research at the Environmental Science and Energy Research Department of the Weizmann Institute in Israel and the University of Minnesota's Mechanical Engineering Department Solar Energy Lab. He served at the Arava Institute previously as the academic director and the director of the Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation since 2016. Dr. Abu Hamed also served in the Israeli Ministry of Science, Technology, and Space, first as the Director of Engineering and Applied Research, and then as Deputy Chief Scientist, including 3 months as Acting Chief Scientist of the State of Israel. The Arava Institute also has a unique resume. It offers students a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to immerse themselves in a cross-cultural environment with others who are equally passionate about building a more sustainable future. Their students and interns are comprised of approximately 1/3 Jewish Israeli, 1/3 Arab, including Palestinians from the West Bank, Jordanians and Arab citizens of Israel, and 1/3 international students, primarily from North America. As I've learned more about the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, what comes to my mind is the Jewish belief in tikkun olam, which is an obligation to repair the world. One of the primary objectives of the AIES is to learn techniques that help society but does not harm the earth. Additionally, bringing together students from communities that are often hostile to one another adds more levels of complexity with the possibility for huge returns. This is peace work at the grassroots level with the possibility to heal torn relationships beyond the personal. Dr. Abu Hamed has said shared natural resources and environmental challenges need a cooperative cross-border approach. Ignoring such issues leads to serious consequences environmentally and to social injustices. My vision, he says, is to advance the Institute as a leader in advancing cross-border environmental cooperation in research, academics, and community for the well-being and justice of our peoples and the environment despite the conflict in our region. I would add to that, amen. This is peace work at the people level. What better way to finally get the job done? So welcome, Dr. Hamed.
Thank you, Penny. It's a pleasure being with you.
Congratulations are in order. Mazel tov. You start your new job as Executive Director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies on August 1st. How are you feeling?
Thank you, first of all, for actually interviewing me and giving me the background here. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to take the Arava Institute to the second level to advance and develop new collaborations in our region.
Can you please describe briefly for those who aren't aware what type of institution AIS is and what their mission is?
Okay, the Arava Institute for Studies is a leading environmental studies and research institute in our region in the Middle East. It houses accredited academic programs, research centers, international cooperation initiatives. We focus on a range of environmental concerns and challenges. Our mission is to advance cross-border environmental cooperation in the face of the political conflict. We do that to ensure that our shared environmental resources will be protected from further degradation and loss, that our scarce environmental resources will no longer be a source of conflict, and we want to use our environmental cooperation work and to convert it into a model in other areas around the world.
Awesome. The students are taught in English, so speaking English is a requirement, but what's the composition of the student population?
Actually, we have a capacity of 60 students, and we're trying to grow to 90, then to 150. We try to keep one-third Jewish Israelis, one-third Arab students, Israeli Arabs, Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza, Jordanians, and sometimes students from North Africa. And we have one-third internationals, mainly from North America.
So for fun, let's imagine that in 17 years, when you're 65, that you retire from being the head of AIES. What would be the legacy that you'd hope that you would have accomplished?
Wow, this is a nice question. I think I want to be actually remembered as who cared and actually who called for a global cooperation, especially on climate change, which is the biggest threat to our humanity today.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask some more personal questions because I think it's really important for people to talk about their personal journey so it can inspire others. So where were you born and raised, and where do you live today?
I was born in Bethlehem, which is almost 1 mile from my home here in East Jerusalem. I was raised also in East Jerusalem, and I live here today in East Jerusalem.
And you're married and have a family. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yes, I am married with a lovely woman called Sukaina, and we have 5 kids. I have 3 daughters and 2 boys, 2 sons.
Wow, that's that's a busy schedule. So you're Muslim. Were you raised religiously?
Yes, I am Muslim. I wasn't raised as a religious person, but I'm conservative. I pray, I fast, but I believe that religion is a very personal relationship between a human and the the creator.
You speak a number of languages. Can you share which ones you speak?
Arabic is my mother tongue. I speak English, I speak Hebrew very well, I speak Turkish very well, and I know a little of French.
You were blessed with a wonderful family who believed in having friendly interactions with the other. Growing up, your father brought home Israeli colleagues, and you said that before the first Intifada, being with the other was normal. Can you tell us about that?
Look, here in East Jerusalem, especially during the period of pre-Intifada, it was, I think, a normal thing to invite your colleagues or your neighbors to your village to have breakfast or dinner. And my father used to do that, and we're still in touch with my father also still in touch with his friends. They come to us for breakfast on Shabbat or for dinner on Friday. Yeah, so that was normal. They still come to us, but it's unfortunately these days this is something that it's unusual.
Mm. And when you were 17, you worked at kibbutz for Ramat Rachel. What did you do, and why were you working there?
Kibbutz Ramat Rachel is our neighbor. It's like less than 1 mile from my home. I used to volunteer and work in the kibbutz during the summer breaks to pick apples, cherries in the kibbutz, and actually that was one of the factors that impacted me and changed my life. To be with the other, just not to see your neighbor from your window, and actually to spend a few hours a day with them, to learn the culture, to have a very good interaction with them, and that was a life-changing experience for me.
What surprised you about them, if anything?
Look, it's not a surprise, but having the opportunity actually to be with them, to live the day with them, that changed my life, exposed me to a different culture. It's something that stayed with me till today. To be with the Jewish community, to be with the kibbutz, which is totally a unique experience. And that's actually the interaction and knowing the other as a neighbor, as a young person or an old person, that they care about their kids, their lives, their farms, that you learn something different than the things that you hear or you think.
Yeah. During the first Intifada, you went to Turkey for 12 years. Why did you leave?
Yes, actually, I finished my high school during the Intifada and decided to leave the country. The tension was very high. Most of the Palestinian universities were closed because of the tension, and I wanted to pursue my higher education, and I decided to leave the country and go to Turkey.
You spent many years working at the Arava Institute in different positions. How did you end up working there?
Oh, this is a long, long story. I heard about the Arava Institute when I was at the University of Minnesota, and through Rabbi Michael, my colleague, and one of the founder faculty members of the Arava Institute. And they had the chance when I was at the University of Minnesota to meet some alumni of the institute. That was my introduction to the Arava Institute. Then I read about them, and I said, this is a wonderful place that it's for environmental studies, it's peace, it's in our region. Yeah, and that's how I came to the Arava Institute. They were looking for someone to establish the Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation, and I applied for that position. I said, this is my dream position. It's in our region. It's renewable energy, environmental studies, brings people together, uses the science and research to bridge between people. Then I decided to leave the US and come back to the country.
Awesome. The Arava Institute's located on kibbutz Keturah, and you live there with your family for 5 years, and life is very different in a kibbutz, and I know there are different flavors of kibbutzes, but can you talk a bit about what that was like for people who really don't know much about a kibbutz?
Okay, kibbutz is a shared community. It was a unique experience for us, for my family. At that time, I had my first 3 daughters. We lived together in the kibbutz. My wife worked in a kindergarten. My daughters were in the school in the kibbutz. It's a unique experience. It's a Jewish community. It's in the desert. It is a kibbutz where you share almost everything. You share the dining room. You share almost everything in the kibbutz. It was a nice experience for us. We still go to the kibbutz in every occasion, especially during the summer breaks. My daughters, they have their friends in the kibbutz. My wife still has her friends there. It was a good experience for them, and they wanted one of the reasons that we moved to the kibbutz not only because of my work, and the other reason is actually I wanted to give my wife and my daughters the experience that I had in Ramat Rachel, to be directly in touch with the other, and this is how we call each other in this region, the other.
Yeah. Yes, quite familiar with that expression. So all the students at your institute and interns participate in a peace-building leadership seminar reflecting the Institute's mission to generate capacity building for conciliation and cooperation even during the conflict. So together they discuss the conflict and historical roots and current situations. How have you seen that experience impact the students?
Yes, actually this is one of the compulsory seminars that we have at the Institute. All students have to take this seminar. During this seminar, the students share personal experiences, family stories from different sides in the conflict. There is universal questions about identity, national ideologies, power and privilege, coexistence, and personal responsibility. In this seminar, in this process, actually, they are challenged to examine critically their own views, cultural values, and the understanding of history. And the most important thing or outcome of this seminar, that both sides, Israeli students and the Palestinian students, understand that there is another narrative, that there are things that the other side believe in, and it's a unique seminar.
It sounds terrific. I wish I was a fly on the wall. Maybe we can talk offline, and I could, if you zoom it, I could see. It just sounds terrific. I know that as a mom, I was surprised at how much my son, as he was growing up, taught me. What have you learned from the students? Anything come specifically to mind?
Look, actually, one of the things that you learn from the students, or you see in the students when they go through this process, that actually changes their perspective, changes the way of how they look into the conflict, into the neighbors. Most of the Palestinian students see Israelis in army uniform, and they never been in touch with the civil Israelis. So this is like a great experience for the Palestinians, and also for the Israelis. Most of them, they never been in direct touch with the Palestinians. So they hear personal stories, family stories from the Palestinians, and actually they
Excuse me, could I just interrupt? Is that the call to prayer in the background?
Yes, it is.
Is
live
I
very
just
close to the
for people who aren't familiar, I thought that was so cool that you know this is your life there, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Yeah. And as I said, actually, they see the human in the other, and that's, I think, the most important thing. Yeah.
So you were so comfortable there that during the recent 11-day violent conflict, you took your children back to stay there instead of at home in East Jerusalem. Why did you leave your home and temporarily move back there? What was that like?
Look, it's in the, you mean in the last
Yeah.
round of conflict. I wanted to be with the students. It's really important for them to see, especially the Palestinian students, to see a Palestinian faculty member or a manager at the institute. This is just to show solidarity, to be with them, yeah, and to help. It's really important to be with the students during these times, because they want to share, they want to release pressure, tension, and it's important to be with them. It's not only myself, also the management team of the institute, who've been in touch with the students almost all the time during the conflict.
So your wife was back in East Jerusalem, and your parents and siblings, and emotionally you must have been a basket case between what was going on.
Yeah, actually, this is it's not only myself or my family or my kids. Actually, all the students and the alumni of the Arava Institute during such a conflict. Actually, you call your friends or sometimes your family in Gaza. You ask how they are doing, and you find yourself calling your Israeli colleagues, asking if their kids are in the army or fighting in the border in Gaza, and I ask them how they are, or you call your friend in Sderot or in Beersheba and say how they are safe. And actually, it tells you that, it shows you, it proves to you that you are human. You find yourself calling a Palestinian, and you're calling an Israeli, and you ask yourself, who am I? And you figure out that I'm just a human and want the safety for the both sides.
Yeah. So you said when our pre-interview that the riots were a wake-up call. What did you mean by that?
This is actually we here in Israel, you see a lot of or you meet a lot of organizations that they work for coexistence. And you go to shared cities, mixed cities, Arabs and Jewish, and you see that's working and business as usual, a normal thing. You don't question it. But the last conflict actually improved to us that we have to speak louder, that we have to put coexistence on or prioritize it on our agenda, speak louder, talk about the importance of the coexistence, and not give others the platform to speak louder than us. I believe that we are doing the right things, and people who are against coexistence are doing the wrong thing. Unfortunately we hear only the voice of the fanatic people on both sides, and that's why we should not allow them to speak louder, and we have to speak louder to just show our case and show that this is the normal thing that should be done in this region.
For many of the people that I've interviewed that are Palestinian, and because of the extremists and the anti-normalization from within their own community, it can be dangerous for them if they work with Israelis. Did you face that as well?
Look, it's for sure you face it because there are a lot of people who are against normalizing with Israel or normalizing with the occupation. But look, if you want to build trust, you have to meet, you have to come together. And the reason for that is you have to know the other side. You have to understand the narrative, and you cannot do that by cutting people, by cutting science, education, culture, or any other activities. For sure, you face some risks, but I think we don't have the luxury to give up. Normalization also, it's both sides. It's like a coin with both sides. I normalize with the Israelis, and what I see and experienced while working at the Arava Institute, that has also the Israelis normalized with the Palestinians.
Yeah.
They understand the narrative, they understand how they live, and they are exposed to the Palestinian story because of this normalization.
Do the students or teachers or administrators also get negative comments when they go home?
They do, but as I said, they don't give up because they believe in the importance of being with the other, exchanging knowledge, exchanging stories. It's a risk that we take, but as I said, we don't have the luxury to give up. The students sometimes face some risks. Our faculty, also especially the Palestinian faculty, they face some risks, but they are brave enough and they have strong belief and they continue doing what they do.
So I haven't asked you what got you interested in the environment?
Well, because we live in it. Yeah,
that's very true.
we breathe the air, we drink the water, and we feel the temperature, the heat waves, or the cold waves, and it's actually it's value also in our religion, that you have to leave the world in a better situation for the next generation, and that's
what do you call? I know we call it tikkun olam. What do you call it?
It's a similar word. It's like actually it's a phrase that Prophet Muhammad said, if you do something, you have to do it in a very perfect way, and the perfect way is actually to keep things or to use things in a very sustainable way. And sustainability means that you shouldn't touch the capacity of anything, and the capacity should continue also for the next generations. I'm a chemist. I always interested in green chemistry, and that's how I connected to the environment also.
Great. Now let's get into some of the projects that you have. I'm going to share my screen here.
This is one of the projects that we conduct at our Center for Transboundary Water Management. There's about 16 streams in Israel that are transboundary in nature. That means they cross the border between Palestine and Israel. Roughly 2/3 of these streams originate in the Palestinian territories. They cross Israel and emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. The difficulties in Israel-Palestinian cooperation result in resistantly high levels of pollution of these waterways and these streams. And this lack of cooperation actually prohibits the agricultural, recreational, and educational use of the ecological uses of the streams. And the main objective of this research is to lay the foundation for effective stream restoration in our region. And this project actually seeks to place the need of transboundary approach of watershed management at the forefront of Israeli and Palestinian water policy.
Next one is the Jordan River and Dead Sea Basin Forum.
Okay, actually, this is one of the important projects that we worked on, also through the Center for Transboundary Water Management. It focuses on the Dead Sea, which is declining at alarming rate of 1 meter or 90 centimeters per year. though there are many reasons for the decline. The main cause has been actually the diversion of the fresh water of the rivers in Israel, Jordan, and Syria for agricultural purposes or for industrial purposes. And the Arava Institute established the Jordan River and Dead Sea Basin Forum as a network of water professionals and the policymakers for the region to actually to save the Dead Sea.
Hmm. And here, the Center for the Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation.
After this center, we established this center in 2008, and actually to utilize the natural resources that we have in the Arava region, where we have a very high solar radiation, actually one of the highest solar radiations in the world. And in this center, we utilize the solar radiation, we convert it into electricity. And I'm proud to say that we produce 100% of our electricity in the Arava region from solar energy. And currently we are working on finding solutions for energy storage, and also using solar energy or utilizing solar energy to find the fuels as alternatives for fossil fuels. And the center also does a lot of work on social aspects of renewable energy, like public acceptance, factors impact the public acceptance, energy poverty in our region. When I say our region, I mean Jordan, Israel, Palestine.
Beautiful. So here the students are studying the biodiversity of the sand dunes. What's that about?
Okay, actually, this is one of the courses that we teach at the Arava Institute. It's a condensed course, it's a workshop. And this course actually provides the students with the hands-on experience in studying biodiversity by exploring its sharp decline and the human-made crisis that ecologists are trying to solve. Some of the questions that the students are trying to find answers for in this course: what species exist and how many? How do we evaluate the abundance of species? Why biodiversity is so important? How do we set priority regions for conservation based on biodiversity? In this course, the students learn about the ecosystem changes of sand dunes, including natural and anthropogenic processes. So it's a course that actually connects the students with nature and the region that they live in.
And I believe that's a snake she's taking a photo of. Is that correct in that picture?
I don't know if that's, I think it's a snake from the picture.
Yeah.
And then also they said, and you see in the back of the students, you see a lot of like green and orange videos. So this is a collection of different species in the sand dunes, like beetles, scorpions, snakes. Yeah, so they set these traps in the evening, and in the morning they go and they collect these species.
Yeah, nothing I want in my sleeping bag. The next project has to do with energy poverty, and it was with the Bedouins. Can you describe what energy poverty is and the project, please?
Actually, energy poverty means that you do not have enough energy to run your daily life. That means you lack electricity, or you don't actually afford paying for enough energy or electricity or fuel to heat or cool your house. It's something that we see a lot in our region, not only in the Bedouin communities. We see that also in Tel Aviv. We see that in Jerusalem, in Amman, that people really cannot afford heating or cooling their houses, and that actually reflects into a public health issue. In the Negev, in particular, especially in the unrecognized villages, because they are not connected to the grid and they don't have appropriate housing. They don't have access to electricity. They don't use electricity enough. The only electricity source they have is few solar panels. and the amount of electricity that they have actually shapes the way they live. So this project actually allows us to quantify the energy poverty in the Negev and try to find the solutions for such a challenge and problem.
And our final slide is on alternate energy tour. That I know that you give a number of different kinds of tours and take your students on different tours. So what is this about?
Okay, actually, at the Arava Institute, the unique thing of the Arava Institute that all the courses that we teach actually are taught by the experts in the field. So if we teach water, Clive teaches that course, and he is one of the very well-known and famous researchers in the water field, climate change, renewable energy, political ecology, geographical information system. Courses are taught by the experts of these topics, and during the semester we have actually 2 trips. One is to Jerusalem, and the other one is to the Negev. And we have the alternative energy tour, which is in our off-grid and research park at the Arava Institute, where we demonstrate off-grid technologies, renewable energy technologies for electricity production, for fuel production, for water desalination, for water purification, for wastewater treatment, these kind of projects that we touch upon during this tour.
That was terrific. I want to also talk about the projects that you're dealing with there that could be understood as working on peace. What are the projects with partners in Gaza, for instance, that you're working on?
In Gaza is a unique place. It's like a densely and highly populated area. They have, we all know that 95% of the water is not suitable for human consumption. The aquifer is polluted. The seashore is polluted, and we try to help. And we actually have partners in Gaza. We partner with the Palestinian organizations both in the West Bank and also in Gaza. And during the last 2 years, we managed to send to Gaza 3 water gen systems. It's a system that generates drinking water from the atmosphere. That they also off the grid. They work on solar energy, and that's one of the actually excellent sources of drinking water. It's according to the analysis of both scientists in Israel and also scientists in Gaza. We managed to have a system in Nasser Hospital, which is the 2nd largest hospital in Gaza, and one in I think in a school, and the other one is in a municipality. And actually during the last war, we've been in touch with our Gazan partners, asking them how are the systems functioning. And they said we cannot reach the systems because of the bumping and the blockade of the roads. And the day after the war ended, they sent us photos of the systems. They sent us like lines of people waiting to fill bottles from these systems. And last week, actually, we received 5 requests from 5 different municipalities in Gaza that they want us to send them more systems like that. Other projects that we work on in Gaza is actually off-grid wastewater treatment plant in Abasan region, and also a 5 megawatt solar field to produce electricity for the Abasan region.
Wow. Really, really great. Do you have any projects because of the Abraham Accords?
Actually, we started. We do not have any projects on the ground right now, but we submitted a few proposals with the partners in the United Arab Emirates. We are in communication with some Moroccan researchers on smart grids and also on some agricultural projects.
How about any projects in the West Bank or Jordan? And I'm kind of interested in, are these teams of different classes that work on this, or how does that all get coordinated?
Okay, this is actually the work of the Arava Institute is based on a cross-border cooperation, because we know nature knows no borders. The air pollution or the water pollution doesn't stop in the checkpoint or in the border. So we try to work with our Palestinian and Jordanian partners to cooperatively solve our region's environmental problems. We do have projects in the West Bank, also on wastewater treatment, off-grid wastewater treatment technologies. And we know most of the villages in the West Bank, they are not connected to the wastewater network. We work with farmers in the Jordan Valley on water desalination, on also solar water pumping. We work with our Jordanian partners, and actually we have the Jordan Israel Center for Community and Environmental Research, which is founded by two of our alumni, one Jordanian, one Israeli, and they work with the communities in the Arava Valley, both in Israel and in Jordan. We have some projects also in the north parts of Jordan on biogas. We work also on agricultural projects.
I know you're. Sorry. I know you not only work with your students when they're there, but you have, as you mentioned, a really close relationship with your alumni and supporting projects that they are interested in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Actually, the main product of the Arava Institute is the alumni. And we have an alumni network that keeps in touch with the alumni, and sometimes we provide them with seed funding to start joint projects between Israeli alumni, Palestinian alumni. We have also alumni network in North America, and actually we try to help them establish their career. And we know that the majority of them naturally stay in the environmental field. We have an annual conference. Sometimes it takes place in Jordan, sometimes in Israel, sometimes in Palestine. And we have a very nice number of alumni who attend these conferences.
I believe this last round of classes were at half capacity, and there weren't any Jordanians. Could you explain if that was due to COVID or some other reason? What was going on?
Yeah, I think the main reason was COVID-19, because the borders are closed. There was no embassy in Amman, so it was hard actually to bring Jordanians to their programs. It wasn't hard; it was impossible because of the regulations. And the same thing also for the American students or the international students, because there was travel ban and they couldn't come to the institute. And actually, we felt that the dynamic is totally different when you only have Palestinians and Jordanians and the Israelis on campus. So actually, the Jordanians and the internationals act like a moderator between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and it's a very nice way also to expose internationals to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
So was it more, I don't know, confrontational? Was it more tension, particularly, with what happened too? I mean, after go ahead.
Actually, it's they are young people, and you bring them to live together. At the beginning of the semester, you really see two separate groups, Israelis and Palestinians. But after the second or the third week, you cannot tell who's who. They become one community, one group. And during the conflict, during the war, actually, the first thing the student decided to do is to come together and to discuss it. And this is this is a free space that we offer our students. In universities around the world, free space means that you only talk about academics, you don't touch about anything about politics. No, free space at the Arava Institute is that you can talk about anything freely, you can express yourself, you can express your feelings, and that will never impact your academic performance. And actually they highly encourage to share stories and to talk about this. This is the only way actually, because it's environmental studies, it's water, it's energy sources, it's pollution, and when you talk about water, you talk about politics. So they have to learn to actually combine between politics and to be in one community, and they actually trained for that in the peace building seminar on how to talk to each other, how to tell stories, how to listen in a very compassionate way. They talk about the Independence Day, they talk about Nakba, they talk about settlements, they talk about the separation wall. It's they have the knowledge and the experience on how to deal with such situations.
Sounds like we all could use that seminar just to get through life. Do the students have to be vaccinated and show proof to come to the Institute?
Yes, and actually this is, I think, one of the stipulations that internationals, they have to show that they are vaccinated, or at least to show negative tests. But our policy at the Arava Institute, we accept only vaccinated students.
So in your programs, you've got study abroad and research internships and graduate studies and short-term programs. Can you talk about you have a lot of different types of programs. Could you talk some about that, please?
Yeah, actually it's a very diverse program culturally, and also the background of the students is different. Mm-hmm. We have usually the international students, they come as study abroad program, and they come for a semester or two, then they go back to the university to finish their degrees. And most of the American universities accept our credits. Mm-hmm. We have also the graduate studies that actually mainly the Arab students come to the Arava Institute to pursue graduate studies in Israel. And I'm proud to say that the vast majority of Palestinians and Jordanians who did their graduate studies in Israel, they passed through the Arava Institute. Mm-hmm. We have also research internship. We have interns that they come and they do research in one of our research centers. And usually they finish the internship by publishing peer-reviewed scientific papers. And we have our short programs department, which actually runs academic or sometimes training programs for international groups on one of the topics that we are experts in, like energy, water, sustainable agriculture. These programs can be for a day, and some of them can be for a month.
So, and all the students get vetted security-wise, so it's a very safe feel on campus, correct?
Indeed. All the students actually, look, when you apply for a visa, you go through a security scan, and also this is valid for the Palestinian students and also for the Jordanians and other internationals.
Am I correct that all of the Arab students are there on scholarships?
Yes, all Arab students, they get a full scholarship at the Arava Institute, scholarship that covers the tuition, the accommodation, the food. You know, we live in a kibbutz, so they share the same classroom, they share the dining room. There's one dining room that the kibbutz members and the students eat in. So the tuition covers, or the scholarship covers, all of these things, because we know the tuition is expensive for the Arab students, and they cannot afford paying the tuition. So we provide full scholarship, and that thanks for the actually our donors in the US for providing these scholarships.
And do Israelis receive scholarships at all, or?
Some of them receive partial scholarship, depends on their socioeconomic system status.
Yeah. So, other than the peace seminar, how do you keep the peace on campus when violence off campus comes into play?
Actually, one of the things that we are good at is creating a community, and it's really a community on campus. As I was saying, it's the students they take courses in one center, in one classroom. Then we have only one dining room in the kibbutz. We are in the middle of nowhere, in the desert. And at the end of the day, they go to the dorms and they sleep and share rooms. So they really live 24/7 together. And we give them the tools on how to create a community. When you become a community, you create rules for the community. And one of the rules, even if they are unintentional rules, is to when a conflict rises, they come and they discuss it. They don't just because they talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And they discuss everything, and that's how they actually pass through it, which is important. They talk, they reflect, they express themselves. It's not easy. Sometimes they shout, sometimes they cry. But as I said, at the end of the day, they have to go and share a room, and they find a way how to live together.
Wow. So, but have you ever had any violent incidences because of what's going on?
Never by students or staff. But sometimes we have some like hate graffiti on the walls of the campus, and we know how to deal with that, and the students know how to deal with this. And when such a thing happens, it happens maybe only twice in the past 25 years.
Wow.
And it's a nice place. And when it happens, actually, the students the first thing they do, they meet and they discuss their reaction. I'll give you the example in the last conflict. We had hate graffiti in the wall, and the student decided to paint over it a peace tree that says we grow the seeds of peace, and the peace lives here.
That's beautiful. So, looking back, what are some lessons that you feel like you've learned from working on peace with Israelis?
Well, look, peace is something that you find inside yourself. And I want to actually share with you what Leo Tolstoy, which is one of the giants of Russian literature, he said, if you feel pain, you are alive, and if you feel others' pain, you are human. And this is one of the things that I learned at the Arava Institute. Other things, it's like that you have to keep all communication channels open between generations, and you have to involve all sides, from governmental, non-governmental organizations, to get your goal.
Yeah. One interesting thing about the Palestinian demographic is that there's so many that are younger than 30 years old. And how does that impact their decisions? And do they have any alternatives to the old guard that are willing to negotiate with Israel, you think? Just curious.
Yes, look, you're right. We have like 70% of the Palestinian population is below 30, and the median age is in Palestine, I think it's 21. And if we look to the leadership in the past 50 or 60 years, we see the same people, and we see that 70% of the population is not represented in the decision-making level, and that's actually just increases the frustration in the Palestinian community. It's a shame to have the same faces, to see the corruption, to see the same people leading the country without giving any opportunity or chance to the younger generation, which is the majority of the population in Palestine.
I know that Arava Institute has been connected to the Malta Conference for 20 years. Can you explain what the Malta Conference is and what you've done with the Malta Conference at the Arava Institute?
Yeah, look, Malta Conference's foundation is actually a wonderful initiative that brings scientists from the whole Middle East, start from Iran to Israel, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi, Egypt, Jordan, Palestine, and we come together for a week and we discuss scientific issues on chemistry, on environment, on education, and it's a conference actually that it's a wonderful example of science diplomacy. And the Arava Institute actually partnered with the Malta Foundation since the beginning. I attend every conference in Malta. We bring our students there, we bring our researchers, and we share our experience during the Malta conferences.
So here on your campus, it really seems like you've figured out how peace actually could work. What do you think is preventing it in the society?
Well, actually, it's the mistrust. What we lack in this region is the trust. It's not the natural resources. We have plenty of renewable energy sources that we can use to produce power, to produce water, to produce food. And the only thing that we lack in this region is the trust. And the Arava Institute is actually building trust between partners in the region. It happens, this works at the Arava Institute because we know how to build this trust. It's not working in our region because politicians, they don't build the trust, they build the fear, and that's what separates people.
Now, I was reading in Al Jazeera that Israel controls 85% of the water in the West Bank, and Israel gives the water to the settlements in the West Bank and not to the Palestinians, and Israel won't grant licenses to the PA to dig additional wells in the West Bank. Is that true, or is the PA blaming Israel because it's convenient to cover up their own issues?
Actually, this is true. In order to dig a well in any area in Palestine, you have to get the permission from Israel, and that's actually one of the reasons of the water scarcity in Palestine. Palestinians consume an average like 70-75 liters per day per person, which is way below the recommendation of the WHO, which is at least 100 liters per day. And if we compare this with Israel, Israelis consume approximately 300 liters of water a day. And also Israel controls most of the water wells in the West Bank. And if we look to the numbers of permits of digging wells in Palestine in the last 20-30 years, there are just few permissions compared to tens of wells that were digged in the settlements.
I have to ask, definitely space has been in the news the last few days between Virgin and Bezos. So when you were serving in the Israeli Ministry of Science, Technology, and Space, what was that like? What did you have some special projects in space that you dealt with?
Not directly in space. Yeah, we did actually have some projects on space, especially with Europe and especially in France. It was a wonderful period of my life to actually serve at the Ministry of Science and Technology. I'm a researcher, and that gave me the opportunity to see the other side of research, the organization that they support and fund research projects. So it was a wonderful experience for me.
Sometimes I think of all this fear and anger and hate amongst Palestinians and Israelis for the other, and I think about how it affects them emotionally and physically and spiritually. What do you think about? What does that do to people, do you think?
Look, actually, when you live in such region, you actually don't care only about the work that you do, or if you're a father, you don't only look into what fathers do or what moms do or what teachers do. You always have the conflict in the back of your mind, and it's something that you have to deal with on a daily basis. If you're a Palestinian living in a Palestinian village, you usually feel unsafe. If you plan a trip that usually takes 15 minutes, you leave your home at least 1 hour before, because you may assume that there will be a checkpoint on the road, there will be something between villages or checkpoints between cities. But people actually, I don't say used to live with it, and actually they're trying to ignore it and to try to live their lives, and these things actually destroy the trust, and actually it just shows the ugly side of the conflict. It's you have to deal with it on a daily basis. It became a way of life.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was so excited to speak with you. I love talking to you and other peacemakers who are not only willing to do it, but are successful, and people need to know that it's not an impossible thing. So if you could talk to the world, what would you want them to know about AIES?
Look, I really wish that we can open a window to the world, a window that the world can see what happens at the Arava Institute. It's a place that actually bridges between people, uses the science, the research, and bridge between people. It actually finds common ground for everyone who cares about the environment and about peace, because at the Arava Institute, our agenda is the shared environment in this region, and I want to show to the whole world that we can do it by building trust, building very strong relationships with our partners, and if we can do it on environmental issues, I think all other subjects can be done the same way by building trust between partners.
Yeah, I'd say that it's really building a bridge between our brains and our heart,
Exactly.
all in one place there at AIES. It's beautiful. So thanks so much, Tareq, for your time and telling us about your great campus, which is usually filled with Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, and international students living together in peace, as it should be for all in the area. Next Tuesday, July 27th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, again, our interview is with Myron Joshua, an Israeli settler and activist who lives in the West Bank. His compassion for his Palestinian neighbors might surprise you. Myron's life is a veritable history lesson and is also one of empathy and activism. Thanks to our Peace with Penny listeners today. And if you'd like to listen again or to any of our previous interviews, you can find them on my website at pennyst.com under podcasts. And until next week, may you live in peace, shalom, and salam.